Hello. Can y'all hear me? Yay! Guess the mic finally came on so I can talk to y'all. How are y'all doing? Good? Yeah, happy Friday. Last day of the conference and my jet lag finally is gone. I feel alive and well and I'm awake. So hope y'all are awake too and as excited as I am to hear all about Maui. So let's get started then. So I'm Rachel. If you are not, if we haven't met yet, I'm Rachel. I'm a product manager at Microsoft working on .NET MAUI, among other things, and I'm super excited to be here. And today I'll be talking to y'all about what's new and next for .NET MAUI and Blazor Hybrid. So to start us off with a brief overview, these are Microsoft's investments in client development with .NET. Microsoft's investing actively in all of these experiences, so depending on what you're interested, the world is your oyster. We have, your deepest Windows native experiences that you can have with WinUI, WinForms, WPF, and then of course there's your cross-platform native offerings with .NET MAUI, woo! And then we have your hybrid experiences with Blazor Hybrid that gives you the best of both worlds between cross-platform native and web, with our Blazor web offering that allows you to have the most modern web apps with .NET. But of course, today I'll be focusing mostly on these two, talking to y'all about .NET MAUI and Blazor Hybrid. So, what is .NET MAUI? How many of y'all are already familiar with .NET MAUI? Woo, love to see it. And by the end of this, y'all will all be familiar with .NET MAUI. So .NET MAUI allows you to build multi-platform apps. The P is silent in MAUI. And it allows you to have a single project system, single code base, all in .NET, to build apps for WinUI, Catalyst, iOS, and Android. All of the above. And how does it work? Well, .NET MAUI being part of .NET, it's built on top of the .NET runtimes and libraries, which gives MAUI developers access to the base class libraries. And it's architected through a series of what we like to call bindings, which are the platform-specific implementations of Android, iOS, Mac, and Windows in C#. And then there's WinUI, which is already in C#, so we don't have to worry about that. And so you don't need to worry about learning Objective-C, Java, Swift, Kotlin, none of that. All you need to know is C#, all you need to know is .NET MAUI, and you get access to all of this. And while you have access to the platform-specific API should you wish, there is also the cross-platform layer of .NET MAUI, which abstracts away all of it so you don't have to worry about the platform-specific implementations. So you could have a .NET MAUI button that is cross-platform, but it's also deeply native in that a .NET MAUI button on Android is going to look and feel like an Android button, and a .NET MAUI button on iOS is going to look and feel like iOS. And .NET MAUI is fully open source as well, so that's another huge perk of it, our awesome community. And with .NET MAUI, you get also all of the awesome productivity tools in Visual Studio and VS Code. But as I said at the top, .NET offers choice for developers. So for those who are interested in modern client development for .NET, we have choices. You can have your Blazor web experiences if you're interested in having the most amount of reach. If you want to have those deep native experiences with your apps, we have .NET MAUI. But then there's also Blazor Hybrid. Because this is a sliding scale, you could really have the best of both worlds, mix and match however much of Blazor and MAUI you want. So that's what Blazor Hybrid is about. With Blazor Hybrid, you can build your web UI in a native client, giving you full access to the native platform capabilities. And we do that through something called a Blazor Web View, and I'll be sharing more about that in a bit as well. So, you might be wondering, all that is great. Now I know what MAUI is. Now I know what Blazor Hybrid is. Who is using MAUI and Blazor Hybrid? Well, we took a peek just at the Google Play Store. Turns out there's a lot of folks using MAUI. Wow. But it's even more than more. In the past year, we've seen more than triple the number of apps just in the Google Play Store alone. So super, super exciting stuff. And if you're curious to learn about and read more about how folks have come to the decision to use .NET MAUI or Blazor Hybrid and what that journey has looked like for them, we have some awesome stories on the .NET MAUI Customer Showcase website. And if you've already seen these ones because you already know MAUI, we have a couple of new ones as well that have recently been added to the website. So definitely be sure to check that out. All right, so that's your brief crash course of what MAUI and Blazor Hybrid is. What's new in our world? So .NET MAUI today, we're thriving. So just since .NET 9 GA, which was in November, just 6 months ago, we have 17% more developers today with .NET MAUI than we did last year. But since .NET 9 GA, what I was going to say is that we have over 1,500 issues that have been resolved and over 1,200 PRs that have been merged. That's insane. I'm super proud of our team for reaching these milestones. I don't know how efficient y'all have been with resolving issues and merging PRs, but yeah, this is huge. And not only that, but we're not just, resolving issues and merging PRs. Like, what do these numbers actually mean when we put them in context, right? Well, compared to last year, we've more than quadrupled in the number of PRs that have been created and 1.4x the number of PRs that have been merged. So again, just tremendous, tremendous growth year over year, and less issues being reported as well, because that's just a testament to how much more quality the .NET MAUI framework has developed year over year. And this is, of course, in huge thanks to our community as well. So Syncfusion has been helping to accelerate our community collaborations and our contributions. And at .NET 9 GA, we announced our collaboration, and at the time they had released, I believe, 15 free open source controls through the Syncfusion toolkit for .NET MAUI. Since then, I think they've released 3 more sets of controls. So now we have I believe it's 29 free open source controls from Syncfusion as well. So we're super grateful for this collaboration. And not only are they offering these free open source controls, but they've been contributing directly to the .NET MAUI repo as well. So we've seen 500 community PRs merged since the .NET 9 release, and over 300 of them have come from Syncfusion. So super, super exciting stuff, and huge shout out to our awesome community, including all of y'all here. All right, so in .NET 9, .NET MAUI is focused on a lot of good things. We saw some new controls, we saw improvements to the app lifecycle, performance improvements, platform integrations, new project templates, and more. And here are some more of those things. So we have Android 35 and iOS 18 support in .NET 9. We have new tools for Xcode sync. So for those folks who are interested in getting deep into their storyboards and Xcode, those changes get synced back easily with new tooling as well. We have native library interop that was introduced with .NET 9, and that enables our MAUI developers who are interested in bindings beyond what is offered in the box to go even further. We have performance improvements all around, including with our controls with collection view, carousel view. As I mentioned, we saw new controls. So we have new title bar control for desktop platforms, and we have new input keyboard controls. That one was also from the community, so shout out there. And just so much more. So lots of exciting stuff. And it doesn't stop there, right? We have the SDK, but we also have the tools, as I mentioned. So the .NET MAUI extension for VS Code GA'd just last year as well. So if you haven't checked out the .NET MAUI extension in VS Code yet, definitely check it out. There's been a ton of exciting things happening there with improving the XAML editing experience, hot reload, and that Xcode sync support tool that I mentioned. And then tons of exciting things happening in Visual Studio as well. So at the time .NET 9 GA'd, Visual Studio 17.12 had GA'd and 17.13 was still in preview. Since then, 17.13 has GA'd and 17.14 GA'd just last week. So lots of exciting things happening. These are just some of the highlights with full page hot reload, GitHub Copilot improvements for MAUI, for example, with Fix with XAML, design time support for live preview, hot reload, and new debugger. So all things to be super excited about. And of course, another highlight with .NET 9 was the new project template we have. So I'm gonna dive in now to show y'all what that looks like. So I'm on a Mac, but I'm using a dev box. So I can use Visual Studio in Windows. And I'm on Visual Studio 17.14, the version that GA'd last week. So I'm going to create a new template, and I'm going to search for the MAUI template. I already have it in my shortcuts, of course, but just to show y'all, it's the first one that pops up here. And I'm going to name it NDC Oslo MAUI app. Hit next. And you see here that there's this checkbox. So this checkbox is what's new as of Visual Studio 17.12 and .NET 9 onward. If I check this checkbox, that's going to give me access to the sample content and the new sample template. So I'm going to hit create, and that's going to bring up our brand new .NET MAUI project. So if you're already familiar with .NET MAUI, then you might be familiar with the classic blank MAUI template app, which is basically just a Hello World app, has a label, button, very simple. But this is a full-fledged sample, which is super exciting. So we have all of our usual MAUI things here. We have our single project, single code base. If we pop in here, we can see we have our MVVM, our models, view models, and our views here in the pages. If I pop into the MAUI program.cs file, then we can see that we're using the MAUI Community Toolkit and the Syncfusion Toolkit. So lots of exciting things happening here because this is, again, a full-fledged sample app. Great way to get started with MAUI right out of the box. So here in the target configuration menu, if you're not familiar with this, with MAUI, we have the option to select any of our target frameworks, and we can deploy from them. I'm just going to keep it simple and deploy on Windows here. And we're going to see what that beautiful, beautiful app looks like. While that's waiting, since we're about to see it on Windows, I'll show y'all that I also deployed it on Android earlier. So we can see our beautiful Android app. And now in just a moment, we will see it on Windows, and I'll walk through it some more. All right, so this is the full-fledged sample app. This is what you get right out of the box. You saw I didn't do anything, didn't write any extra code. So we have here some beautiful controls from Syncfusion, like this chart. This is a to-do sample app. So we have some projects on things we need to do, some tasks for tasks to check off. We have navigation implemented, so I can switch to a different page, like projects here. I can create a new project, and so much more. Lots of exciting things happening. We have light mode, dark mode, all the fun stuff. All right, so a little bit about the tooling. So if you're familiar with the world of MAUI and Visual Studio, you might already be familiar with some of this tooling here. We have XAML Live Preview, which allows us to see a live preview of the running application. We have Live Visual Tree, which allows us to see the XAML tree of all the components that we have in our XAML. And we also have Live Property Explorer, which I have popped open down here, which allows us to inspect the different properties of each control pretty easily. And so the cool thing, though, that is new here is not that you have access to all of these. It's that even when you're not debugging your app, you're not in a debug session, you can still access those awesome tools, which allows you to really iterate a lot more quickly on your designs and your app. So I'm going to pop open the main page here, and you see in this upper left corner, there's this live preview button. And you get this in 17.14 GA, as well as previews in earlier versions. And I can see here my XAML Live Preview, my Live Visual Tree, and my Live Property Explorer, all working, and with hot reload. So let's say, the awesome part of these tools, if you're not familiar with them, is that I can click into them and it'll navigate in my code. So for example, if I click here on this projects label, it'll jump to where I am in the XAML editor. It'll take me to the labels. I can make edits here in real time. I'm going to call it my projects, and I see those changes reflected immediately. I want to go and click on this background, and it's going to take me where I am there to the vertical stack layout, and I want to change the background color. I can do that easily. Let's say I want to change it to pink. Boom. Let's say that wasn't quite the pink I wanted. I can change it pretty quickly to explore the other pinks. So this type of really quick, changing and figuring out the exact colors and sizes, those types of things is really easy to do with live preview and hot reload at design time, which is what's actually allowing us to see those changes being made. And then while I'm here, might as well talk about GitHub Copilot. How many of y'all have used GitHub Copilot? Awesome. So GitHub Copilot, if you weren't aware, there's a free tier available now. So if you haven't used it, it's worth at least checking out. So I can see in the upper right corner here, we have GitHub Copilot. Pop open a chat window, and you can pick between various models. So you can pick and choose what you want to use. And as of 17.14, there's actually agent mode in Visual Studio as well. So this is still under preview. So you'll need to go and make sure you have that setting turned on, enable agent mode in the chat pane if you're interested in checking that out. But yeah, I'll speak more on that later, but just wanted to highlight where you can find it. All right. Now let's pop back into the slides. All right, so that's a bit about what's new in MAUI, what's new in Blazor Hybrid. So in .NET 9, we also have a new solution template for Blazor Hybrid. We have a new Blazor Hybrid and Web app template. So hybrid apps with Blazor are truly better than ever. You're getting a lot more flexibility with what you're able to do over there. There's been improvements to the tooling there as well with hot reload and the inner loop. It's also available for you to use in the VS Code extension that I mentioned, and of course fixes to documentation and bugs. And the other hot new thing with Blazor Hybrid and .NET 9 is our hybrid web view. So for our non-.NET developers in the room, if you're a JavaScript person, you can also use Blazor Hybrid via our hybrid web view. You can use React, Angular, whatever you want, and reuse those components in a hybrid web view to leverage Blazor Hybrid solutions with .NET MAUI as well. So really, you can do anything. So a little bit more about that Blazor Hybrid and web app. Why is that such a cool thing? So you'll have a Blazor Hybrid project, but you'll also have a separate web app project that you can use, and you can have a shared Razor class library through which you can share the UI components between both of those projects. And there is a lab available today that y'all can check out. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing because that would take me probably an hour or so, but I'll give y'all a sneak peek as to what that lab has to offer and what you have to take away from it. So back in our dev box. Alrighty. So, whoops. Alrighty, I'm gonna create a new Visual Studio. Let's see how many Visual Studio instances I can get open at once. All right, and now I'm gonna create a new project again. And this is where the lab will take you first. So it'll take you through the new project creation flow, and you'll be taken to the Blazor Hybrid and Web App project option. So we have our standard Blazor Hybrid app template here, and then we also have our Blazor Hybrid and Web App template, which is what we're going to take a look at. I'm going to call this one NDC Oslo Blazor Hybrid Web App because I'm lazy and so creative. And here I can choose again the framework I want to use. I can choose to configure for HTTPS. I can choose the render mode that I want between server and WASM and whatever. I'll just choose server. And similarly, I can include sample pages or not. And I'll just include them and hit create. Alrighty here. So we can see that we have a lot more going on than in the standard MAUI sample app, but as I mentioned, we have our MAUI Blazor Hybrid project up here at the top. And then at the bottom, we have our web app project. And then in between here, we have our shared Blazor class library. And if I pop in here into the pages and layouts, this is where our shared UI is going to live between the Blazor Hybrid project and the web project. So if I go into the Blazor Hybrid project here and I pop open the main page, we can see that we're using that Blazor web view component that I mentioned. So this is a MAUI XAML page with a Blazor web view control, and all of the web magic is happening inside of here. So we see that we're referencing this app as our root component. And in this www here, we can see that we have your HTML and our CSS. All the stuff that y'all web devs in the room are used to seeing. And then in our my program.cs here, just very typical, we can see things that are very familiar and typical of a MAUI app. We can see that we're referencing here our services, and similarly on the web app side, we're also referencing the implementation of the same services here. But it's device specific. So in the shared project, in the services, we have all of our interfaces for any services that we might want. And then in the Blazor Hybrid app project, I have my MAUI implementation of it. Here I'm using the MAUI APIs to get to the device specifics of what I want. And on the web side, since it's just web, for that implementation, we're just returning web. And it's just a super neat way of compartmentalizing what you need and the different implementations that you'll need to have. So enough chit chat. Let me build and deploy this app so you can see what it looks like. And take a sip of water. The last time I gave a presentation, I accidentally spilled water all over my laptop the morning of, and it took 3 weeks for me to recover my machine. So it can't happen again. All right, hello world. So this is our hello world Blazor Hybrid and web app project. And if we can see here that it's letting us know based on that services implementation that I showed you that we're running on desktop using WinUI. Beautiful. And just to show you what other pages look like, we have counter button implementation and we have weather info. All right, and now I'm going to deploy on the website to show you what that looks like. So you can see here we can choose between our Blazor Hybrid app project and our Blazor Hybrid web app project. So I'm going to switch over to that and launch over there. And we'll see that it's going to pop open our local host here. And you can see it looks exactly the same. So we get our same thing here, but this time instead of telling us that we're on a Windows device, it's letting us know we're on the web because it is different. And everything else here, works exactly the same. So super cool stuff. And if you go through the rest of the lab, eventually what you'll end up with is a monkey finder app. So let me just deploy that for y'all so you know what it looks like. Let's see. So the lab walks you through the file new template app that I just walked you all through, but then also takes you step by step for implementing like a list of monkeys and navigation and all the cool stuff there. And eventually you'll end up with a list of monkeys in your app, and you'll also be able to play around more with implementing your own services and with connectivity, network connectivity, so you can see what it looks like when things perform even more differently on Windows versus web. So here you have monkeys. This is a tribute to Xamarin for all y'all folks familiar with Xamarin. And you can click into your monkeys and learn more about them. Yay! Okay, back into slides. Alrighty, so what's next for .NET MAUI and Blazor Hybrid? I talked a little bit about the cool new things and the new project templates that we saw coming out of .NET 9. But what have we been up to since .NET 9 released? What are all the new things that y'all have to look forward to? So, first and foremost, we're invested in quality. That's always our top priority, making sure we're crushing bugs and improving developer quality of life for all of our .NET MAUI developers. We're ensuring that you can build the most secure and accessible apps possible. And of course, with Xamarin having gone out of support over a year ago now, making sure that folks still can have a seamless migration experience, but also saying goodbye to some of the old remnants from there. We're focused on performance, improving your performance not only for the controls that you have in MAUI, like with collection view, tremendous improvements there, but also with improvements to the performance of the improvement. Also with improvements to the performance of your tools, like your debugger, the startup time of your devices, all that type of thing. And we're focused on making your MAUI development experience a lot simpler as well, whether that be through making XAML easier for you or reducing the manual effort that's required to create bindings, or just with getting started in VS Code. All these things we want to make simpler. And of course, keeping .NET MAUI modern and fresh, bringing you the latest from the latest APIs from Xcode 17 and Android API 36. And so there's a lot of awesome things to look forward to also from the .NET ecosystem with Aspire, with Blazor Hybrid improvements, and so much more. So lots of exciting things, and I'll dive deeper into some of these areas. So on the note of performance, our team is working on native AOT support and bringing that into the .NET MAUI world. And here we see an example from Syncfusion where they benchmarked the latest template app size and startup time before or after using native AOT on iOS. And I think the numbers here speak for themselves, right? Before native AOT and after native AOT, the app size reduced by half pretty much. Isn't that wild? And then the startup time also decreased. So we're getting a lot faster startup time there as well. So real performance improvements coming your way. And then I mentioned XAML. Who here loves XAML and figuring out all the intricacies of XAML and figuring it all out? Okay, I saw like 2 hands. So there's a lot of XAML source generation work that our team is working on to make XAML life easier for you. One example of that is with XAML namespaces. So with XAML, in every single XAML file, you need to list all of the namespaces for every single thing that you are referencing in that file. And if you're missing a namespace, your code editor will get mad at you, and it's a whole thing. So how might we simplify this? How might we simplify the need to, per file, specify tons of XML/NS every single time? Well, what if we had a global XAML file where you can put all of your global XAML namespaces all in one file, and then in your other XAML files, you don't need to worry about them again because you have that global reference. And you can see here, even though we don't have the XAML namespaces listed at the top, we're still able to use them, like in this case of the resources one. And so these are the types of improvements that are coming your way with the XAML namespace simplification. But wait, there's more. What if we eliminated XAML namespaces altogether? What if we didn't need to use prefixes at all? So here, we're looking at the main page of a MAUI app, and you can see there's none of those namespaces, and we have a meant to command behavior. And where is that coming from? I don't know, it could be just coming from MAUI out of the box, but actually, as this tooltip informs us, it's coming from the MAUI Community Toolkit. So super awesome that it is able to detect that, and you can have this much simpler experience where you don't need to worry about getting every detail exactly right. And that would all be automated and taken care of for you with the awesome XAML improvements that are in flux. So this is something, these are real screenshots and things that are happening and coming to you soon in the .NET 10 preview. So things to look forward to. And then in the world of Blazor Hybrid, awesome more improvements coming there with customization features for Blazor WebView and Hybrid WebView and more fit and finish things. So if you have any requests or thoughts in these areas, go find this issue and let my teammate Beth know what you're looking for, and they'll make sure to have that covered. I mentioned the .NET MAUI extension for VS Code, and I told y'all earlier that it came out just last year, GA. And since then, we've seen more than double the installs, so super exciting to see more adoption there. But honestly, if you know anything about .NET MAUI by now, it's that we support a lot of different device targets, right? And that can get complicated real fast, especially if you're new to .NET MAUI and you're trying to figure out how to get started and set up your environment for every single thing. And in VS Code, which is not a full-fledged IDE, that can be especially complicated. So we are working on improving that setup experience. And actually just last week or the week before, we introduced this experimental flag in the latest pre-release. So if you're in VS Code and you're trying to get started with MAUI, this is a great place to start. Highly recommend checking that checkbox on. It's still experimental, so more improvements coming your way. But here is a sneak peek of what that looks like. Not sneak peek. This is live. This is out there. It's public. But here's a peek to what it looks like. Not sneaky. So this is, a walkthrough, generic walkthrough that you get with a lot of extensions in VS Code. And here, what's new from what you might have seen previously is that we have these new steps for helping you to configure your iOS and macOS environment if you're on a Mac, and your Android environment for everywhere else. And it walks you through each step, but it walks you through not just the manual commands that you need to copy, paste, and run, and all the documentation you need to read and everything, but it takes you through the process automatically, so it's automated, and you don't have to worry about all the little details should you not be interested. So we can walk through all the steps of the walkthrough, and in this scenario, I have my iOS environment happy, but my Android environment's destroyed. I ruined it. I didn't have any of the required components installed. So it's going to let me know, and I hit that install button, and it installs for me everything I need. It installs the Android SDK components straight from Android. It's installing for me the latest supported version of the JDK that I need. It's telling me that I need to accept the licenses here, so I'm just accepting them in terminal so that I'm still in control of that. And voila, that's it. It's all set up for me. So super easy, super simple, and working on making it even easier for our MAUI developers who are just getting started. So with all these areas of work I mentioned, we're also working intelligently, both by leveraging Copilot and other intelligent tools to help accelerate our work, but also ensuring that y'all can have the best .NET MAUI development experiences with intelligent productivity tools as well. So, GitHub Copilot. Here we are again. We're continuing to build out GitHub Copilot specifically to support the developer experience, to take care of all those tasks that are mundane and, you don't really have to worry about. There's a lot that we do as developers. Some of it is writing code. A lot of the times we're not writing code. We're trying to make sense of things. We're writing tests. We're writing documentation. We're creating our PRs. We're writing out our PRs, the description, and everything that's happening. So GitHub Copilot is here to help us with a lot of those mundane tasks. And the next evolution of GitHub Copilot helps us with those mundane tasks throughout the entirety of the software lifecycle, from ideation and planning to the coding to the testing and review and more. So earlier, I mentioned agent mode. So you might be familiar with agent mode if you're using VS Code. It's been there for a while. But now we have agent mode in Visual Studio as well, as I mentioned, behind that preview flag as of the latest version that was released last week. And the cool thing about agent mode that really takes GitHub Copilot and any AI chatbot really to the next level is that beyond just answering your question and being there to chat with you if you're lonely and being your pal, it's there to help you do things on your behalf. It'll write the code. It'll just go and do the thing. Of course, you'll still be in control. You can tell it, no, I don't want that, or yeah, that looks good. Let's keep that one actually. But it's really more of an AI companion in that manner. And then we also have Copilot Vision, so vision capabilities with GitHub Copilot. You can attach an image of a UI design you might have, or annotations, or an architecture design, whatever it might be. And Copilot can interpret that vision and take that into context in its responses as well. And with Hot Reload and Live Preview, it really is phenomenal in bringing your designs to life. So let's take a look at what that looks like when we bring GitHub Copilot Agent, GitHub Copilot Vision, Live Preview at design time, Live Preview at design time, and Hot Reload, and all the things all together in one picture. So here I'm going to create a login page with the help of GitHub Copilot. That's our main task. And here I'm going to ask Copilot to implement the UI and using Vision to reference an image that I attached. So I have an image of a login UI that I created, and I'm going to attach that. I'm just asking Copilot, hey, can you implement this in the XAML? And you can see I have Live Preview popped open. And as I mentioned before, this is at design time, so we're not in a debug session, which you can see up there. And Copilot's going to go ahead and generate that XAML for me. And again, all I've done so far is ask that single prompt of like, hey, implement this, attach image. And since I prompted in agent mode, that's why it's going ahead and generating all of that code. And then with Live Preview, I'm able to see what that code looks like in real time. And then reviewing the changes that Copilot made, they look good to me, so I'm going to press keep there. And then I'm going to move on and continue refining my design with Copilot. I'm going to ask, hey, can we actually use the input controls from the Syncfusion toolkit? And also, let's make the background orange. And once again, with all of these tools, we're able to see these changes being made in real time. I can see that the app is going to update to hopefully use that orange background color I want. I want this orange theme to become my entire background here. And we're seeing Copilot is working, updating the XAML, and boom, we can see visually in our live preview at design time, these changes are being updated. Clicking into the live preview though, I'm seeing that those input controls, they don't actually look like the Syncfusion controls that I wanted. So I'm going to click into them here in the live preview. Sure enough, that's something that Copilot missed this time. But I'm going to just ask Copilot again, like, hey, can you help me out with that? Make sure you're using those Syncfusion input controls from a Syncfusion toolkit. And sure enough, this time, GitHub Copilot is going to get it right and knows what to do. And it's going to go through my entire code base to figure out where I might already be using the Syncfusion toolkit control. And it's going to find my custom implementation of the text input layout control and use that. So super cool that it's not only doing exactly what I asked, but using the context of my entire solution to figure out what exactly I would want. And that looks a lot better. But of course, some things are quicker to do just on my own without the help of Copilot. So I'm using the power of live preview here to make some quick changes to font size and image size of some things here, as I was showing y'all earlier in the other demo. And now that the UI looks good, I'm going to ask it to implement some of the actual code behind functionality. So I'm asking Copilot, hey, can we implement this button here so that when I click on it, it'll now take me to the rest of the application? And sure enough, it's going to be able to do that. And it takes me now from beyond my prototype to helping me to get started with the vision of what my app can actually look like once it navigates to the next page. And I'm going to rebuild and redeploy my app to make sure that it actually works. And sure enough, as I type in my username and password and I hit login, we're going to see that it navigates to the app. How awesome is that? Is that not super cool? It's super cool. I don't know how much y'all have played with Copilot and agent modes, but the first time I tried this, I was floored. It's really incredible how much quicker that we can ideate and get started on things and learn through these tools. So super exciting stuff. I can't drink water near my laptop. What am I doing? All right. But you might be wondering, like, okay, Rachel, you had a cute little image of your design that you came up with as someone who's not a designer. Our designers are a lot more sophisticated, right? They're using tools like Figma to come up with real full-fledged designs. Maybe it looks something like this. So this is an example of some Nike shoes in a Figma, not my original design, because again, I'm not a designer. But now with GitHub Copilot, there's also the power of MCP and leveraging MCP tools. And so there's a lot of different MCP servers and tools that are already out there in the community. For example, a Figma one. And so what if I use that MCP tool and I copy my Figma link and I paste it in the Copilot chat and I just say, hey, can you implement that design for me? Let's go with the third one to start. And Copilot says, sure. And without me mentioning MCP or anything, it realizes that it can use the Figma MCP tool that I have at my disposal. it asks me for permission to do so before using it for, security purposes. And so it'll do that, and once I accept, and it'll go ahead and generate the XAML for me, just like we saw before with Vision. Now we're seeing it happen with the Figma MCP as well. And the design looks pixel perfect, just like what we saw in that Figma design. So super, super cool. All right. Now, what else is new with .NET MAUI? What else are we working on? Aspire. So if you're a .NET developer, chances are you've heard of Aspire already. I'm not going to go too deep into it. That's a topic for a whole nother session, and I think someone already covered it earlier today as well. But in short, Aspire is a set of tools, templates, packages that help you to build observable, production-ready apps. And one of the super neat parts about Aspire is the Aspire dashboard. So it looks like this. And MAUI loves Aspire, so it's coming to you in the .NET 10 timeframe as well. And so you can see here an example of an Aspire dashboard for a MAUI app. And you can see that there are some warnings here that are specific to MAUI. So it helps you to see things like this, to scan the logs, and see these things coming straight out of your MAUI app. And when you run into errors, they're also easy to identify. You can see here there's that little 3 in the red dot. And when you click into them, you can see the relevant error messages and logs. And through the Copilot integration in the Aspire dashboard, you get even more context and help in diagnosing those issues more easily as well. So if we go back here, we know we have errors. We click into those errors. Now we know that error is something about get response async failed. Great. If we click into that, we'll get more information from Aspire on what might actually be going on there. But GitHub Copilot also gives us a lot more helpful context in this scenario as well. And we can see that it's telling us that we exceeded the current quota. Please check your plan and billing details, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, oh, okay, so that's why I ran into the error. Thank you, Copilot. If you're interested in the Aspire scenarios, I highly recommend you check out our man Gerald. Like, comment, subscribe on his YouTube. He has videos about this. And if you missed it, as I'm sure most of you did, the build session for .NET MAUI was just last night, so super fresh. And Gerald walks through in that demo presentation the Aspire demo in greater detail. So be sure to check that out. Lots of awesome things happening. And of course, .NET Conf is coming up in November. So if you're curious about what made it into .NET 10 by the time .NET 10 is GAs, be sure to tune in to .NET Conf in November, and you'll get all the latest and greatest there. But if you don't want to wait until then, there are a lot of other ways for y'all to stay in touch on GitHub, YouTube, email. On YouTube in particular, we have a monthly community stand-up first Thursday of every month, so you can catch us there. And that's it from me. Thank y'all for coming by on this lovely Friday. Really appreciate you. I'll be sticking around for questions, or if you just want to chat, or if you want MAUI stickers, .NET stickers, Blazor stickers, I have them all, so please come by.